Welcome to hour number 2 of our second day in a row, live right here on College Football Today on SportsGrid. It's a special Sunday edition because Labor Day weekend is dominated by college football. Our 4th straight day of CFB action, a marquee matchup tonight in Las Vegas between LSU and USC. He is the mastermind. That is Joe Lisi. He is OK Dubs. That is Kevin Walsh. I am Ben Stevens. And we start our second hour on this Sunday with an updated, ever so slightly, edition of Ben's Top 10, following the first full Saturday of this 2024 college football campaign. There weren't crazy upsets. There were a couple of teams that looked dominant, covering numbers easily. There were a couple of clubs in Eugene, like Oregon, that struggled against an FCS foe as nearly a 50-point favorite. But we have subdued reactions, at least on my end, maybe his. Not so sure about OK Dubs over there when it comes to the rankings. So let's start working our way up. We're going to go 10 through 6, and then we'll get 5 through 1. So here is the reveal, 10 through 6. You'll notice last week at number 9, it was Florida State. But after they lost in the Dublin debut against Georgia Tech, outside of the top 10, maybe even the top 15, Missouri is up. A 51-zip victory over Murray State on Thursday. I am optimistic about the Tigers this year with the easiest schedule in the SEC. 40-1 price on Missouri. Michigan up ever so slightly, number 9 in the country. Ole Miss, Penn State, and Alabama, Kev, all very dominant yesterday.
So the immediate reaction I have, which I then luckily did process a little bit, was where's Miami? Now, there's 10 spots, and I'm going through already because I've talked to you enough. I understand Mizzou won big, Ole Miss by a gazillion, and I'm big on Michigan. So I guess an important question, especially with what we have this year, give me an idea of the outside looking in. I feel like it probably doesn't include Texas Tech. Whoa.
We're going to start there.
The ninth largest upset in the history of
Whoa,
college
this
football.
is where we're going.
Okay.
This is week one. It's week one.
Now I got to mediate a question.
There's 14 weeks.
Listen. We'll get to you in just a second, but you asked me the question, so let me just answer. I'd say Miami's 11 to 12 range, right outside, on the outside looking in. I'd say Tennessee's around that ballpark as well. Utah's going to factor into the top 15. Florida State's still there. What are you, Matt?
I have a big problem with that. I really do. We know he's a Big Ten guy. Okay. I have no problem with that, okay? And based off yesterday's performance from an offensive perspective with Warren and Orji, wasn't impressed, and I certainly wasn't impressed how they utilized both the rushing attack with Donovan Edwards. That being said, we know that the weak point of Penn State was Drew Aller coming into the year. In terms of 3 games that he lost last year to Ole Miss, Michigan and Ohio State, he completed less than 50% of his passes. Because he goes 11 of 17 and they blow out West Virginia, who we never thought was a top 25 team maybe to begin with. They're ahead of Ole Miss and Jackson Dart that absolutely beat them in a bowl game?
Furman plays in what division?
But if they play tomorrow, which quarterback
I was wondering where the point was going. You were you're like walking around the mall here at Bellworth.
I'm saying,
so
418 yards. He abused that defense
against Furman.
But nothing's changed.
Furman, West Virginia, we're splitting hairs.
But wait, no.
First off, this is where the rankings were last week. If there were any changes, it was moving all 3 of these teams up here, and maybe a team that we'll see in just a moment outside of the top 5 entirely. That was considered today. But Penn State was incredibly dominant on the road in Morgantown in a rivalry matchup against a 9-win West Virginia team that returned the entirety of the reason it was good a year ago.
Yeah, but I think if they play tomorrow,
who?
Both of them, Ole Miss and Penn State.
The Peach Bowl from last year.
I know, but
they still have some pedigree as the reigning national champions in these early season rankings.
I just think Jackson Dart is that much better than Drew Aller. So I would, and based off yesterday, even though it was Furman, nothing's changed, and I still think that Franklin Kiffin.
So where were you last week yelling at me for this?
Because that was that was preseason, and now we watch the performances play out. And again, 418 yards. That offense is rolling.
Now I have another OTB question. Because I have an idea of who's in this area. No Big 12, no ACC.
Correct.
Are you I guess if you take those two leagues combined, I know it's week one. Are you guys thinking that those two could be one-bid leagues even possibly?
Possibly, yeah. Based off of yesterday, absolutely.
Based off of yesterday, slightly, at least the ACC's performance so far this year. But that was my thought. Really entering 2024, it was my thought in the college football playoff predictions that we did week 0 as well. What do you got?
I'm just saying. What? We know Abilene Christian has some offense over there. Okay, 500 yards. Listen, it wasn't
Texas
a conference
Tech's
game.
in the top 100 right now.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, listen, I see how it comes out.
All
just curious. Did you cash your tickets for the futures after week 1? The books giving you are the books giving you the money?
Now listen.
I'm just
that's on it, right?
Under 4.5.
I love it. It's great. I won.
I ask because from the ACC end of it, right?
Right.
Everybody's looked bad. We'll get talk some Florida State, the Vodtech loss, all that. The Big 12 was interesting. Now, as somebody who's in on Oklahoma State, a little bit of Utah, a little bit of Arizona, you could say it was a mixed bag. I don't know. Oklahoma State rolled this South Dakota State team.
Sure.
Utah won by a gazillion. Arizona's 2 superstars, as good as it gets ultimately in game 1. So I liked what I saw from the Big 12, and I'm not sitting here saying, come on, man, where's Oklahoma State?
Yeah.
I mean, I am, but I'm not.
Yeah.
But I would put them over Mizzou. But I'm curious, again, can these teams get in, or is this really going to be the SEC and the Big Ten dominating this top 10?
I think we'll find out next week. And I told you right after the games played out yesterday, Utah-Baylor is going to be an intriguing battle, even though it's in Rice-Eccles, because Dequan Finn and that offense put up some points, and we know Dave Aranda is a defensive-minded coach. And I said last year, 20-13 without Cam Rising, but that game went right down to the final 2 minutes. So I want to see like a month in the books before I oversay that the Big 12 is only getting one team.
When you look at the 10 best national championship prices, even following last week with Florida State, but where we are even after this full Saturday, Miami, some big movement, but 22-1 still outside of the top 10. 9 of the 10 best prices hail from both the Big Ten and the SEC. The only non-Big 2 power team is Notre Dame, of course, the FBS independent. So let's go 5-1. Notre Dame checks in there at number 5 for me. Texas remains at 4. This was the big one. I kept Oregon at number 3 because it's 1 week. And yes, it was a poor performance against Idaho. There is no debating that. I still believe in Oregon and their overall season outlook. And I think the price at 7-1 to win a national championship, tied with Texas for the 3rd best number, is justified.
No, I see your mindset. I'm curious to see now. You're still going to agree with him now that because I would put Notre Dame 3rd based off that performance from an offense and defensive line perspective and the agility of Riley Leonard. But there you go.
I would say Notre Dame belongs to probably be 3rd in terms of make it. I would not have still Notre Dame actually inside my top 5. My big thing with Oregon, somebody who has them in their CFP, and where I strongly disagree with you, is justifying that number and a number that's dropped. Yesterday, they were struggling. They're supposed to have one of the best, if not the best, offensive line in college football.
Yeah.
They were struggling to block Idaho.
You're correct.
You're never going to sell me on the defense. If the offense is a question mark, oh, boy. That's bad news.
I would agree. I actually think the defense was fine. I thought Oregon yesterday failed for sure. But I think the defense is going to be good for the Ducks this year. A lot of talent, and they made the necessary transfer portal additions. Your point about the O-line, sound. The Vandals had 3 sacks yesterday against Oregon, maybe even 4. Oregon gave up 5 total sacks in the entirety of 2023. And I still have Ohio State over Georgia as the Buckeyes are my national championship pick. So that's how Ben's top 10 stands. Again, if there was a huge movement in my rankings, it would have been taking Oregon outside of the top 5. I decided to press pause for just a moment. Now we'll talk Monday night. Can Florida State bounce back? Now back in the States next.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Carlos Alcaraz has won the last 2 Grand Slam titles at the French Open on the clay and at Wimbledon earlier this summer. He enters as the favorite.
You have a bunch of depth there. Francis Tiafoe, Ben Shelton. They will likely play in round 3. The winner would play Djokovic, most likely, which would be an incredible match. I like Ben Shelton as a sleeper. If Djokovic is hurt, you never know. I think Shelton could actually be the guy that gets hot. The conditions favor him.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With 2 former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
It's a 5-day straight run of college football to start off the 2024 season in full on this Labor Day weekend. The marquee matchup tonight, the top 25 tilt in Las Vegas between 13th ranked LSU and number 23 USC. And it continues for a 5th and final day tomorrow night in Tallahassee. Labor Day Monday. Florida State returns from Ireland, still ranked in the top 10. We did not get an updated AP top 25 after the 4-game week 0 slate into week number 1. And FSU looking to bounce back from the disaster in Dublin. There you see the 16.5-point spread against Boston College, total at 50 and a hook. But before we dive into the game, Lisi guy, we talked narrative. Of course, it was not how Florida State wanted to start the season last week over in Ireland. Georgia Tech wins 24-21. The Yellow Jackets victorious outright as a double-digit underdog. And for Florida State, part of it was bouncing back from being left out of the college football playoff to end out last year and making a statement to start. But more importantly, does it already dictate what 2024 has in store for the Seminoles?
I think they can get back in this thing, especially when you see what happened in regards to Clemson. That's got to be a confidence builder. They come to Tallahassee in regards to early October, and they're going to have to play Miami. But they beat Miami in back-to-back meetings, won by 7 points last year, and 2 years ago dominated 45-3. So just from the emotional aspect, they have the inside track heading into that matchup. They're going to have to run the football better than they did against Georgia Tech. Would they have 58, 56 rushing yards in the first drive? They got about 30 the rest of the game. Last year, they averaged 170 rushing yards per game. They need to stay in manageable third downs, Kev, to take the pressure off of DJU. I think they could do it. Again, I still think their defense is much better than what they showed in regards to Ireland. This is still an inexperienced quarterback in Castellanos. 15 touchdowns last year with 14 picks. Yeah. That, to me, could be the difference going in up against that secondary.
There's so many interesting things here. I think it's appropriate off of Ben's top 10 to talk about how tricky rankings can be, right? You kind of didn't realize it, but if you were to come out with a new AP poll, right, would we expect Florida State is still inside the top 25?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you think Georgia Tech will crack into the top 25?
I think they will receive votes at bare minimum.
Okay. But realistically, there's no justification for Florida State in front of Georgia Tech, right?
No.
I mean, priors matter.
Right.
But if you were ranking especially, and I know it's a futile exercise, but to put in playoff teams, Georgia Tech is 2-0. They covered, unfortunately, against State last night. I guess I bring this all up when we talk about the viability of FSU to still make the playoff. Mm-hmm. Well, that loss to Georgia Tech is so damning from an outright perspective of can they get in without that automatic bid. Why it is uniquely disastrous is USC or LSU could lose tonight by 1 million, and it has no bearing on their auto perspective. They lost a conference game.
Yep.
That's why the Miami numbers dropped, and Clemson numbers, before Georgia put them back in their place, dropped so much. The incredible thing is, this whole conference has looked such a mess outside of Miami. You'd be mistaken to probably not have Florida State as the second best team in this conference.
It is a really fascinating study because, again, a 10-2 Florida State team in previous years that wins an ACC championship, based on what we know from the decade-long history of the college football playoff, has no chance of even sniffing the college football playoff field. But a 10-2 Florida State ACC champ more than likely is going to be one of the 5 highest-ranked conference title winners this year, earning an automatic bid and an opening round bye into the college football playoff. That is why their season is not over, but that's why you see such a large shift in the odds, doubled the price to win the ACC, and Miami is now the favorite because it wasn't just a season-opening loss to a pesky Georgia Tech team. It was a conference loss from week number 1. In fact, for FSU, Kev, it's a conference game in 2 consecutive weeks to start off the season. It's because their final 3 games of the year are all non-conference against Notre Dame, Charleston Southern, and then if they end the year against Florida. But it's another conference game on Monday night at home against Boston College. It's a 16.5-point spread. The total is 50 and a hook. If we compare it to last year, BC went at home and held tough with FSU the entirety of the game. 31-29. Florida State survives. They were ranked number 3 in the country at the time, but BC easily covered as a 26.5-point underdog, and it was really the coming out party of Thomas Castellanos.
It was a great game for BC then. Doing some spread math, though, left this tricky. Early season, some year-over-year stuff I just find interesting, and these teams played early on last season. The neutral field, if we call home field advantage, worth 3.5 points. Last year's FSU team laid on a neutral would be laying 30 to Boston College.
Yeah.
This year's number is 13. 17 points of movement year over year. I got to tell you, you could probably justify it because Florida State lost so much, put up an ugly week 1. That's one of the things, man. They looked bad against Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
And I understand the buzz around Boston College because Bill O'Brien does have some legitimate pedigree, and that's why I did take BC plus 16.5. I don't think it's the best number in the world. Would have loved to cross over to 17.5. Who wouldn't when you're taking points? You want more points, more points, more points. But I like Bill O'Brien. I think Bill O'Brien, Mike Norvell, I'm not at some big disadvantage here.
No, and him catching points, I see the look. I mean, we worked the game in regards to the Monday night. Bailey Zappi had a performance over Pittsburgh, and that was all Bill O'Brien's doing in terms of the scheme perspective. Young quarterback, young talent. It's going to come down to the interior trenches. What you saw in Ireland, is that really Florida State, or was it just a poor performance and now we're going to get more of what we get in regards to the interior line play? I'm buying in that they're going to come in angry, that the fact that it is a conference game, that's the biggest thing. If this was an out-of-conference game, I might take the points. The fact that it's Boston College, I'm laying it.
The debut for Bob. That is Bill O'Brien. Of course, 7 years as a head coach in the National Football League with the Houston Texans, 2 years as a college football head coach at Penn State over a decade ago. We will continue our breakdown of Labor Day Monday's marquee matchup in Tallahassee up next.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. they didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Carlos Alcaraz has won the last 2 Grand Slam titles at the French Open on the clay and at Wimbledon earlier this summer. He enters as the favorite.
You have a bunch of depth there. Francis Tiafoe, Ben Shelton. They will likely play in round 3. The winner would play Djokovic, most likely, which would be an incredible match. I like Ben Shelton as a sleeper. If Djokovic is hurt, you never know. I think Shelton could actually be the guy that gets hot. The conditions favor him.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circa Sports Million, Circa Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With 2 former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Monday night in Tallahassee. Will Florida State bounce back now in the United States after the Irish opener and the disappointment in Dublin? I could keep going all day long. FSU, a 16.5-point favorite in its second consecutive ACC matchup against Boston College. Let's look at BC. Thomas Castellanos returns as the quarterback. When you look at his props for tomorrow night against the Noles, 160.5 for a QB. This guy might stink. Not necessarily. One of 3 quarterbacks at the FBS level a season ago, along with Heisman Trophy winner Jaden Daniels, the stud for Liberty in Caden Salter, that ran for more than 1,000 yards on the ground. And Lisi, it was Thomas Castellanos last year that led Boston College to a near upset of FSU and an easy cover as a 26.5-point home favorite. More than 300 yards through the air, a touchdown, albeit an interception, 95 yards on the ground, and another score with his legs.
Yeah, he's going to need to get over that number, in my opinion, to challenge and cover the 16-point number against Florida State. We talked about how they performed from a defensive perspective, holding opposing offenses last year to about 170 passing yards per game, well under 60% completion percentage. And even though Georgia Tech won that matchup, Ben, Haynes King had that one bubble screen and only really threw, 168 yards, 165 in terms of that matchup. So, again, they limited the big plays over the top. That's where you would hope Bill O'Brien comes in, and he's a mobile quarterback. Again, I think Castellanos has to get through the 160, but I also think we need like a Riley Leonard type of effort, Kev, in regards to maybe 50 yards on the ground as well.
Look, if you're Boston College, though, and you win this game, look, all of a sudden, man, why not us?
Yeah.
Because the state of the ACC is kind of why not us?
Right.
And it is why now with Miami, there's a part of me that is trying to figure out how real their at-large chances are. If you look at that Miami schedule and what remains, the most difficult games, just based at least on, kind of project. Vatek, what a disaster that was yesterday. And they're at home at Louisville. Miami's off of a bye week, hosting Florida State, but you are hosting Cuse and McCord. I'm just but my point
Struggled
is,
with Ohio for a little bit.
Struggled?
So
Kyle McCord threw for more than 300 yards. Thank you. Go ahead.
No, but here's the interesting point. And this is one of the – so let's just say this team drops a game to – let's say they lose at Louisville, right? They get to that ACC title game. and they lose to Florida State. You guys cash your tickets. Amazing. Good for you guys, right? And Miami sat there at what would be 11-2. Well, they lost in a conference game, but Penn State's idle. Ole Miss is idle. Michigan's not playing. Is there a world where going to an ACC title game could end up a detriment for a team like a Miami?
It all depends. If somehow Miami gets left out of the ACC championship, it can't happen. Right, well, then that's it. Then it's go big or go home, because Miami doesn't have the type of schedule from a top 25 perspective to challenge any of the likes of Michigan or even Notre Dame for that matter. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why you have to win an ACC championship, right? And it's unfortunate. But that's why I still think Florida State has great value, because they do play Miami. And, oh, by the way, they get that victory if they're still on, let's say, the outside looking in. They play Notre Dame in South Bend in late November. So they get that, depending upon where the Fighting Irish are. All they have to do is seal the deal with a championship.
And listen, Florida State has a difficult slate. They have the fourth most difficult schedule in the ACC. They have a road trip to Miami to take on the Hurricanes. The reason they are playing such a front-loaded ACC slate is because their final three games are two of the three against FBS foes, Notre Dame and Florida, to end out the season. A lot will be determined, though, by what Mike Norvell's Noles do, Joe, here in week number 1 against Boston College. You look at the line, 16.5 in favor of Florida State and a total at 50 and a hook. Do you think FSU course corrects on Monday night against Boston College?
I do, and I think they put up 40 points on themselves. I think this is like 40-14 or 47-14 in that regard, 47-21. I think it's a huge night for Roydell Williams in the rushing attack. Again, that was a pathetic performance. This is a defense in terms of Boston College that gave up well over 4 yards per rush and 187 rushing yards per game, Kev. So offensive line needs a better effort.
I'm interested in the DJU number. It's pretty low. I think 15.5, 16.5 type of number. I just wonder if he almost tries to force a couple explosive plays to prove himself, because of everyone who got torn up for that loss, he got it the worst.
Only 193 yards against the Yellow Jackets in week 0. The coach, Terry Bowden, joins us next.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Carlos Alcaraz has won the last 2 Grand Slam titles at the French Open on the clay and at Wimbledon earlier this summer. He enters as the favorite.
You have a bunch of depth there. Francis Tiafoe, Ben Shelton. They will likely play in round 3. The winner would play Djokovic, most likely, which would be an incredible match. I like Ben Shelton as a sleeper. If Djokovic is hurt, you never know. I think Shelton could actually be the guy that gets hot. The conditions favor him.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With 2 former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Welcome back to College Football Today, live right here on this Sunday on SportsGrid. He's Joe Lisi. I'm Ben Stevens. It's our second consecutive day on CFT, which means day number 2 for the coach. Terry Bowden joins us here on this Sunday for his reactions in the marquee games on Saturday. A look ahead to tonight in Las Vegas between LSU and USC and Florida State and Boston College, rounding out the weekend. Coach Bowden, we appreciate the time. Thanks for being here for a second straight day.
Thank you so much. A lot of great football yesterday, and we learned a lot about some of the top teams.
And, Coach, that's a really good point for our reactions in week number 1. Yeah, maybe just a one-game sample size, but what insight and analysis can we take away? You've got 28 years as a college football head coach. You know your sample size for sure. So let's start with some of the marquee matchups that we saw. We begin in Atlanta, the top 15 tilt between Georgia and Clemson. The Bulldogs victorious and by a lot, 34-3 over Clemson. UGA easily covering as a 10.5-point favorite. Coach, what did you learn about both the Bulldogs and the Tigers yesterday?
Well, I thought Georgia was better coming into the game, but I didn't know they were that much better, and I didn't think Dabo felt they were that much better. I thought his game plan was good. Let's keep it close till halftime. 6-0 at halftime. He kept it close, figured he could come back in the second half, have a chance with a turnover or two to win it. But that's what Georgia, on the other side, they said, you know what, we can throw the ball, we can run the ball, we can move on their defense, we can stop their offense, so let's open it up. Georgia opened it up. Clemson had nothing to answer for it, and the separation in the talent level just showed so badly that now you have to say, okay, Georgia's still where we thought they were. Now we have to ask ourselves, is Clemson where they thought they were?
And that's where I want to go, Coach. We knew that Georgia had the better quarterback, Carson Beck over Cade Klubnik, but what can this Clemson offense do to potentially make a run now at an ACC championship? Even though it wasn't a conference game, they looked one-dimensional, couldn't run the football consistently. What do we need to see out of Clemson the rest of the way?
Well, they just have to open it up a little bit more. You got to remember the game plan. Clemson had the entire year to have a game plan for Georgia. And so that was the game plan just for Georgia. Now they've got to decide, well, do we need to open it up? Can we do more? And on the other hand, you got Virginia Tech losing. You got Florida State losing. The conference is not Georgia and Texas and Alabama. It's a different conference, and the ability to beat teams in that conference require different things. So I just think they need to play as well as they can play. They have to attack the ball downfield if they're going to be able to score the points and open up the running game.
Clemson still the second best price to win the ACC. There is a lot for the Tigers to improve on. And, Coach, you know what that is like with your extensive experience as a college football head coach in learning from week 1 and making sure you improve throughout a season. Let's go to the marquee matchup in prime time, the top 20 tilt in College Station between Texas A&M and Notre Dame. The Fighting Irish win by double digits on the road in a low-scoring affair, 23-13 over the Aggies, winning outright as a 2.5-point underdog. Coach Bowden, what did Marcus Freeman, entering year number 3, show you last night with his Notre Dame school?
Oh, a big hurdle. He overcame a big hurdle beating Texas A&M in College Station. That is a tough place to play. Jimbo left their coach, Elko, a lot of good football players, and they were even favored against the top team, Notre Dame. But Notre Dame showed their stuff, great defense, almost put me to sleep after watching Miami, Florida, because of the way the game was played. But it was a great defensive game. Notre Dame showed their stuff by hanging there, making the big plays at the end. And the difference was the quarterbacks. It really was. Defenses were both very good, but the differences were the quarterbacks. Wigman threw 2 interceptions. In the fourth quarter had 3 incompletes in a row when they had a chance to get ahead or tie it up, and did not do what he could do. I think Notre Dame has proved they can play against anybody, anywhere this year. It's going to be exciting for them. I think Texas A&M has got to answer that quarterback situation because you can't just win with defense in the SEC. You have to have a defense, but you got to be able to put points on the board.
And that's where I want to go to, Coach. Perception, right? The perception was that Texas A&M was the better team, right? 8.5 win total potentially, and being a dark horse contender in the SEC. Notre Dame was looked at as maybe a middle-of-the-road team, still not maybe with the elite teams like Georgia and Ohio State, respectively. So I agree with that. But from Texas A&M, do you feel this is a top 25 caliber team, especially from an offensive perspective, and watching Connor Wegman last night? Because a lot of scouts think he's actually a first-round selection in the NFL draft.
Well, I'm not sure yet. I haven't watched him a lot last year. I watched him last night, and I'm not sure quite. They have to be able to utilize him, throw the ball downfield. If you're going to have a quarterback that's that talented, you got to throw the ball downfield, give him a chance to make big plays. So many times that a quarterback just dumps it off and throws short passes. It's not the quarterback; it's the play calling. They want to keep it close, win with defense. They've got to open it up, and if they're going to win in the SEC, they've got to score points. Because I don't care how good your defense is, there's going to be outstanding teams in the conference that are going to score points.
A really good front seven for Mike Elko, who handles a lot of the defensive responsibilities. Colin Klein, former K-State great at the quarterback spot, worked in the Little Apple in Manhattan under Chris Kleiman the last few years as the offensive coordinator. His first game as the OC for A&M last night, a mixed bag to say the least. All right, Coach Bowden, let's move it forward to Sunday night in Las Vegas, a top 25 showdown between number 23 USC and 13th ranked LSU. The Bayou Bengals, a 4.5-point favorite in Las Vegas. The over-under 64.5. Coach, last year, two high-powered offenses that could run it up and two defenses that would allow the opponents to score a lot of points. How do you think 2024 begins in this matchup?
Well, these two teams are different than last year. Two Heisman quarterbacks are gone. Now, I think Moss Miller has got outstanding talent. I really like Garrett Nussmeier as a quarterback, but we've got two new defensive coordinators as well. And defensive coordinators that can stop an offense are difference makers in these games. Remember, as many points as USC scored last year, and Lincoln Riley's going to score as many as he can score against a team he's better than. But when he played UCLA, Oregon, and Notre Dame, he scored 20, 27, and 20. When you've got a defensive coordinator who's got the book on the play callers, that's what we call it. When a defensive coordinator has the book on the coordinator of offense calling plays, they tend to hold them down. So I think it's going to be the questions, the defensive coaches that took over these programs, because remember the team that held them down, UCLA, who held USC down, they've got their coordinator down now too on their staff.
I want you to settle potentially a debate on the show in regards to the head coaches. Brian Kelly for LSU and Lincoln Riley for USC. In your opinion, who has the better resume and which coach has the advantage tonight?
Well, I'll be honest with you. Lincoln Riley comes from the Mike Leach family. He's going to try to score. He doesn't only want to win games. He wants to score more points than everybody. And sometimes that hurts the defense. It gets you 3 and outs. The defense gets lax because they get ahead against lousy teams. You don't make them play tough games. For what I've seen over my years, if you're all about scoring a lot of points, you got to be careful because you put yourself in a bad defensive situation. Brian Kelly does not call the plays. I think Brian Kelly in this situation will be in a better situation because he won't have that overriding score a ton of points philosophy interfere with winning the game.
Yeah, Brian Kelly enters year 3 in Baton Rouge, year number 3 for Lincoln Riley at Southern Cal. All right, Coach Bowden, final question for you. Let's go to Monday night in Tallahassee, Florida State, back from the disaster in Dublin, now taking on Boston College. Second straight ACC affair for FSU to start this season. How do you think the Seminoles respond?
Well, I think they'll play a much better football game. I looked at that game and I said, they thought they were going to win that ball game against Georgia Tech. They played conservatively. They ran the ball too much. They didn't. After the first drive, they averaged 1.5 yards a run, and they kept throwing it shallow and running the football. And Georgia Tech just pounded and pounded and pounded. Florida State thought they could stop the run, thought they could run the football, and it didn't work. And they stayed with their game plan too long. They've got to open it up on offense. DJU actually threw 70%. He completed, so I think they will win the game. But right now, I don't think they'll cover.
Yeah, 16.5 points, the spread in favor of Florida State. Coach Terry Bowden joining us today on College Football Today. Coach Bowden, we appreciate the time. Enjoy the rest of your Labor Day weekend.
Thank you, man.
We're very glad to have him here all season long. College Football Today returns on the other side of the break. Next on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Carlos Alcaraz has won the last 2 Grand Slam titles at the French Open on the clay and at Wimbledon earlier this summer. He enters as the favorite.
You have a bunch of depth there. Francis Tiafoe, Ben Shelton. They will likely play in round 3. The winner would play Djokovic, most likely, which would be an incredible match. I like Ben Shelton as a sleeper. If Djokovic is hurt, you never know. I think Shelton could actually be the guy that gets hot. The conditions favor him.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With 2 former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
One full Saturday in the books for the 2024 college football season. What does it mean after the performances on this opening weekend for the Heisman Trophy race? You would not necessarily expect in the openers for a bunch of these clubs around the country to see a ton of changing markets in the Heisman Trophy. We're in stat padding territory early on in the season, but we did see a substantial amount of movement following this first full Saturday. Oregon's Dylan Gabriel remains the favorite, but at a 7-1 number. The number has actually worked against him by $1. Carson Beck was pretty good against a good Clemson defense, and yet he moves back in the market. I think the reason we are seeing that movement, Joe, is because of the guys on the come-up. Jackson Dart, Cam Ward, Jalen Milroe, all now a 10-1 price, tied for the third best number. Milroe and Dart were 14-1 before Saturday. Cam Ward a little bit longer than that, and both put on, or all three, I should say, put on full display what they could be capable of this season.
Yeah, they put on those gaudy performances, right? You know, especially with Cam Ward on a national stage. That was a 3:30 game, 385 yards. We know about the dominance in regards to Billy Napier in Florida at home, and obviously in recent years how Mario Cristobal and the team failed to step up on the road, right, in road environments. So that was a great performance, and that's where you see value in regards to the markets, Kev, in regards to the Heisman Trophy, because you get the week-to-week now where potentially Carson Beck, I mean, that started slow, still put up 275. I mean, he had a bunch of drops in that matchup. That's still a top 20 defense in regards to Clemson, and he torched them in the second half. So maybe, you know, after the month of September, we could sit back and say, okay, now this is a guy to jump on because the markets move so much, including Travis Hunter in regards to that performance on Thursday night.
Look, Hunter, certainly a good point, a lot of movement. I know we're going to talk some Colorado in a little bit here. So last year, everyone knows I had the Milroe ticket. It might be kind of forgotten. I also had the Carson Beck ticket as well. And why I think some of these performances we saw yesterday matter is I was very dejected the first 2 weeks of football from Beck last year because he threw 3 total touchdowns between the games against UT Martin and Ball State. Again, Milroe yesterday had 5 total scores. The Jackson Dart performance, I don't care who you're playing.
Yeah.
That was ridiculous. 400 yards and a half. There was a part of me that almost legitimately, leave him out there. See if he can throw 1,000. Yeah. I don't care. Like, it was unreal. So, because at the end of the day, when we're doing the Heisman voting, we are going to go full counting stats here. We don't ever say, here's what they averaged per game. So that's why yesterday for Milroe, Dart, Nico, those were such big days, and that's why I promise I'm not trying to add on. For Dillon Gabriel, that's a huge missed opportunity there to walk away with 2 touchdowns. 380 yards is good. 2 touchdown passes, that's a big whiff.
Oregon's offensive day yesterday was strange. If you were just box score surfing and looking why Oregon was only up a score over FCS foe Idaho, it didn't really make sense. Dillon Gabriel was throwing the football well. They were moving it well. They had multiple turnover on downs to end possessions throughout that game. A missed field goal early despite on one of their first opening offensive possessions. It was Gabriel connecting with Tez Johnson, who remains in Eugene, providing that optimistic spark offensively. But you are right, because when you think about the sum of your year, oftentimes Dillon Gabriel throwing for 415 yards and 4 touchdowns happens against a team like Idaho. Was not necessarily the case yesterday. I thought Jalen Milroe was fantastic. And just to mention Jackson Dart, 418 passing yards, 27 more on the ground. 5 passing touchdowns, a rushing score, 6 total TDs, all in the opening half against Furman. The Running Rebs 176-0. Some would tell me it's more important than a Peach Bowl victory, but who knows necessarily how that goes. But Jackson Dart became the first quarterback in FBS college football to throw for more than 350 yards in a single half since Joe Burrow did so back in 2019, and we all know how 2019 ended for Joe Burrow in terms of the Heisman Trophy race. Let's move it down a little bit to the next 5 best prices to win the Heisman Trophy. Quinn Ewers, 11-1. He's moved back a little bit in this market, or at least in national consideration, but 3 touchdowns, 260 yards, and basically 2+ quarters yesterday against Colorado State. Nico Iamaleava in his first start in Knoxville, more than 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. Will Howard has a dangerous offense. Wasn't great yesterday against Akron, but Ohio State does win comfortably with 52-6 being the final. We'll see Garrett Nussmeier tonight, and Drew Aller now inside the top 10, Kev, with a 25-1 price.
Yeah, my thing still with Aller, while I know the game was great against West Virginia, they played an obviously more threatening competition than a lot of the other guys. I still don't think his numbers are going to be gaudy enough to hang with these other guys, because I really do believe now with an expanded field, statistical dominance is going to matter so much, Joe, and that's why those 3 SEC quarterbacks jump off the page the way they do.
I agree with you in terms of backloading the schedule, too. You mentioned Jackson Dart. Got to play LSU in Oxford, also have in Baton Rouge, and also has to play Alabama and Georgia. So those are teams that are potentially can catapult him, right? For Drew Aller as well, I sort of equate Drew Aller to Lamar Jackson last year, right, where everybody knocks everybody off, and he's just there because the statistics aren't gaudy, but his team maybe is, tops of the Big Ten because of the schedule. He might be in the conversation, but I just don't see him having value from the Heisman perspective.
Just out of curiosity, because I think we're going to get to some other running backs in a bit here. Genty, I really want to talk some Ollie, but Donovan Edwards yesterday.
Underutilized, 27 yards. But again, you see, here's the thing now. Big game against Texas. If he all of a sudden 303 and they knock off, there you go.
Is he even the lead back anymore in Ann Arbor? Is it Kalel Mullings? Maybe so. We'll talk more backs. Ollie Gordon II, over 100 yesterday against South Dakota State, a game we really didn't get a chance to break down. Ashton Genty doing it all for Boise State. 6 touchdowns yesterday in a high-scoring game against Georgia Southern. And we'll give you some looks at the Heisman Trophy as well, some more odds that you must pay attention to. And how about Jalen Milroe? 9 passing attempts yesterday, 200 yards, 3 touchdowns, ran for 79 yards and 2 scores as well. Kalen DeBoer knows a thing or two about offense. More Heisman Trophy odds conversations next.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Carlos Alcaraz has won the last 2 Grand Slam titles at the French Open on the clay and at Wimbledon earlier this summer. He enters as the favorite.
You have a bunch of depth there. Francis Tiafoe, Ben Shelton. They will likely play in round 3. The winner would play Djokovic, most likely, which would be an incredible match. I like Ben Shelton as a sleeper. If Djokovic is hurt, you never know. I think Shelton could actually be the guy that gets hot. The conditions favor him.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With 2 former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
We continue the Heisman Trophy talk on the first day of September for what is going to happen in early December and striking that pose as the Heisman Trophy winner. You guys want to talk some running backs. I know you were high on Donovan Edwards, Lisi guy, at a 100-to-1 price entering this season for the Maize and Blue. And Kev, you were high on Ollie Gordon II as well, a 75-to-1 long shot that you gave out to end out our Week 0 show, now just 2 Saturdays ago. OG2 yesterday against an FCS power in South Dakota State looked pretty good. The Pokes roll to a 44-20 victory. They easily covered as a 12.5-point favorite.
Yeah, the 75 number, it's down to 60-1. I think it's important to acknowledge South Dakota State. You mentioned an FCS powerhouse. I would argue at the moment the FCS powerhouse here. That was a line that for most of the week was under double digits. I think it closed a little bit above that, though, with some money coming in. That was clearly correct on Oklahoma State. But about 150 yards and 3 touchdowns, that's how you get off of the mat. That's what we're kind of talking about here. I know it wasn't Ashton Genty. We'll get there. But let's talk about other top running backs.
Yeah.
We mentioned Donovan Edwards. Judkins, Trevion Henderson. I got to tell you, Joe, the only way one of those guys is in the mix is if there's an injury. And so I didn't, that's Akron. I mean, I didn't like what I saw there whatsoever from a usage perspective or anything of that nature. There were some wide receivers. I mean, McMillan, crazy. Restrepo was brilliant. Damian Martinez didn't have as much juice as I wanted. I don't know if he got banged up in that game. There was long stretches we weren't seeing him on the field for Miami. 1 week, right? But from a running back level in the power conferences, is there a name I'm missing that I'm not giving enough credence to who had a bigger game than Ollie Gordon?
No, well, he what was it? 104, 2 touchdowns. He caught passes out of the backfield as well. And again, we talked about South Dakota only giving up 89 rushing yards per game yesterday, 15-0 and FCS champ. That's a great performance. Yeah. I still go back to these running backs again. I'll believe in Donovan Edwards. He doubled in price from 90-1 to 180-1. We talk about his usage yesterday. They utilized him as a decoy in regards to the passing attack. Do they save this now now for Texas. We talk about not showing too much in terms of week one. And again, the schedule. They do get USC at home. Yeah. They do get Oregon in regards to a matchup. We know that they have Ohio State on deck as well. So the body of work can be there. You know, you want to catch the value here so that they progress towards the end of the regular season, a la Devontae Smith and others that have stolen over the past, 6 or 7 weeks of the regular season like Jaden Daniels. So I'm still a buyer in Ali Gordon with Kevin as well. Yeah. But I still think Junkins, and I'll take a shot in regards to Donovan Edwards. You want to give me almost 200 to 1? Potentially, I'll take a shot on Edwards, double down.
Only 65 yards for Travion Henderson, only 55 for Quinshawn Judkins. Did find the end zone as well. James Peoples gets in for one against the Zips yesterday. I actually thought Will Howard was better through the air. 228 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 of them to the outstanding freshman Jeremiah Smith in his debut for Ohio State. But let's take a moment to focus on Ashton Jeanty. One of the reasons that I was optimistic about the Broncos going back-to-back as the Mountain West title winners and my Group of 5 pick to get into the college football playoff. Sure, it's not Malachi Nelson as his quarterback, and Maddox Madsen was okay yesterday, but Jeanty was historic and sensational. 20 carries for 267 yards and 6 tutties. That a school record, matching a Mountain West Conference record for the most rushing scores in a single game. Kev, he was great yesterday for Boise State, and they needed all 6 of those. They barely held off Georgia Southern, 56-45, albeit on the road.
So on one end of it, Jeanty was amazing. His number dropping from 150 to 1 to 75 to 1. And the fact that we know a G5 team will be in the playoff is why we discuss a Jeanty. It's why the 267 and 6 isn't just a footnote, but a conversation. The other end of it is they didn't look good at all. And for Boise State, again, they're playing Oregon next week. If you lose that game, it's all good. I think for Jeanty, if you legitimately want to have a Heisman chance, Joe, he's got to perform well. It's Boise looked like a team yesterday that's going to lose more than once this season.
No, I agree. And when you look at that line in regards to Georgia Southern, it was a 13.5-point number, opened at 12.5. They struggled for much of that game and gave up 30 points in that matchup. Yep. That's got to get better.
Boise, the second worst passing defense in the Mountain West, a conference known for running it. Georgia Southern airs it out. They got exposed a little bit yesterday. How about Teteroa McMillan? 60-1 now to win the Heisman Trophy. 304 yards and 4 touchdowns. His quarterback, Noah Fafita, threw for 422 and 4 touchdowns, all 4 into the arms of Teteroa McMillan. Hour 3 on the other side of the break here on CFT.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Carlos Alcaraz has won the last 2 Grand Slam titles at the French Open on the clay and at Wimbledon earlier this summer. He enters as the favorite.
You have a bunch of depth there. Francis Tiafoe, Ben Shelton. They will likely play in round 3. The winner would play Djokovic, most likely, which would be an incredible match. I like Ben Shelton as a sleeper. If Djokovic is hurt, you never know. I think Shelton could actually be the guy that gets hot. The conditions favor him.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.